Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and countless companies are basically being bought up by the government in this coronavirus crisis, which I would call more of a government crisis because the governments are basically destroying businesses and then coming in and literally trying to own the businesses. We're witnessing something that's very similar to, I guess, fascio-communism. It's fascism and communism come full circle on the circular spectrum. It's not left and right, my friends. We're going to go into this story and more today, but first make sure to hit the like button, share on social media to help us get around the shadow banning. Join our new newsletter at www.iambanned.com, as well as join us on Flote.app, as well as BitChute. We need to get off YouTube. Our days are numbered here. It's ridiculous that we're even still here. They've demonetized us because we aren't taking up the line of the World Health Organization, but we speak the truth and no one will be able to stop that. We will tell the truth whether it's on YouTube or another website somewhere else. I hope you all join us over there and check those links below. Anyway, let's get into this news. As this article out of the New York Times says, I know it's the New York Times. Screw the New York Times. It's what we're going to get out of this article, which is more interesting. As it says, Lufthansa to receive $10 billion bailout. The German government, which will take a 20% stake in the airline, said Lufthansa, was facing an existential emergency. Wait a second. A 20% stake in the airline. My friends, are you aware of what that means? It's basically that they're doing what China and the IMF has done for years, and the US to a great degree as well, but more notably the IMF and to a great degree China and places like Africa. They loan money to countries, for example, that they know cannot pay that money back. And because they cannot pay that money back, they take ownership over the main resources in that country, these different like electricity companies, water companies, etc. And they slowly buy up the country until they own the country. We see that all over Africa with China, who of course has helped Ethiopia out a lot. Ethiopia, one of the heads of their Communist Party being Tedros being the head of the World Health Organization. We could draw all the connections there that we need to with everything that we're witnessing in the world right now today. But we're going to go into that more in a moment. But first, let's get back into this article here. As it says, Lufthansa will receive a bailout worth 9 billion euros or $9.8 billion to help the airline survive an existential emergency caused by the pandemic and virtual shutdown of passenger air traffic, the German government said Monday. It wasn't caused by the pandemic. It was caused by government shutting everything down, and then they come in as a solution. Wow, imagine that. As it continues here, it says the agreement reached after several weeks of negotiations will give the government part ownership of the airline for the first time since it was privatized in 1997. Great. Berlin will take a 20% stake and 2 seats on Lufthansa's 20-person supervisory board. In the event of a takeover attempt, the government can raise its stake to 25%, which would allow it to veto a deal. Oh, great. Fascism alive and well in Germany. Who would have thought that? As it says, the anti-takeover provision of the bailout plan reflects fear in Europe that foreign investors, for example from China, will take advantage of depressed stock prices to buy up crucial companies. About 1/3 of the bailout will be in the form of loans, chiefly from KfW, a government-owned development bank. The bailout requires approval from the European Commission. I'm sure the European Commission won't have a problem with that. Look, a lot of these airlines, they've just started putting prices back up again because they know they're going to get bailed out. We're probably going to lose a few major airlines in this whole situation. But, I mean, the government comes in, they print an insane amount of money at the central bank, and then they're literally taking over these companies. This is the epitome of fascism, the epitome of communist fascism. It's exactly what we see in China. And if you say, like, what do you mean by communism and fascism? They all go full circle. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's not a linear line. It's not left and right. It's a circle. And that circle meets full circle. Fascism is the government control over corporations. Communism is the government is the corporation. We have a little bit of both right now with what we're seeing here. So, with that said, In Britain, we are also seeing similar things with a small business bailout, which, all these businesses, they can't afford to pay the loans back. Again, as I mentioned before, 50%, 52% of all small businesses say if this goes on a few more weeks, they will never reopen again. 24% of restaurants say they will never reopen again after all this. It's tragic. It's absolutely insane. And it is a form of terrorism, spreading fear via ideology. And that's what the government and the financial system has done here. Well, in Britain, a lot of these people who cannot pay back these loans, these small businesses, the British government is now saying that they want to take equity worth the amount that they've loaned them in the companies that they loaned to. So basically what? Almost all the small businesses are just going to get bought up. The ones that exist get half bought up by the government. I mean, if this isn't an obvious sign of fascism, and guys, people are going to say, oh, well, it's to protect these companies from going under. We need this to happen so these companies don't go under. Of course that's the excuse. Of course. They put them in that situation so they can come in as a solution. It's an ancient philosophy. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. It's a problem, reaction, solution, repeat. Full circle, over and over again. You create the problem, come in as a solution as people beg dependent on you to save them from the very thing you created in the first place. So that's what we're seeing here. That's what we're seeing all over the world. That's what we see with the IMF. That's what we see with China. That's what we see with the United States government and countries around the world. Nation building, etc. So, I mean, this is where we have to really stand up and support the small businesses. This is why the small businesses should have just gone out. If everyone did it together and opened up, regardless of the shutdowns, everything would have worked out just fine. And by the way, millions will die because of the shutdowns. Millions, way more than the virus. The CDC just said that the virus death rate could be as low as 0.04% if you have it, if you consider the asymptomatic cases being way higher than originally theorized. And then on top of that, even people like Bill Gates said the shutdown will kill more people than the virus itself. And in Japan, you have like less than 1,000 cases of deaths in a country that's almost not shut down at all. And I'm going to bring up this chart. I keep bringing up this chart, but it's important just for some context regarding the situation we're in here. This is non-lockdown versus lockdown. Green is deaths per million in non-lockdown countries. Red is deaths per million in lockdown countries. Let's look at Belgium. They locked down. 665 deaths per million. Let's look at Taiwan. They didn't lock down. 0.3 deaths per million. South Korea, 5 deaths per million. Japan, 3 deaths per million. Mexico, where I am, 14 deaths per million. The highest of the ones that didn't lock down is Sweden, which it's very convenient that that's the only one that people are talking about in the news. But meanwhile, we have Belgium, 665, Italy, 483, Spain, 525, and all these are extreme lockdown countries. UK, 394. I mean, Germany is down at 79 deaths per million, which isn't as terrible. But seriously, guys, I mean, the stats speak for themselves. The places that lock down have a higher rate because people, my friends, this is important to point out. Viruses are already dead. They get into your system. They cause your immune system to attack themselves, so you need a strong immune system. You're not going to get a strong immune system by sitting inside, out of the sun, without vitamins, with a whole family around you who have to go out and buy food at Walmart or wherever it is because they've allocated only certain businesses that are crowded with dirty people to go to and not allowed to go to the beach. But you're allowed. You have to go to Walmart. And then you catch anything, whether it's coronavirus or something else, and coronavirus was created in a lab, very, very demonstrably at this point. And you end up in the store surrounded by germs, then you bring it home to all the people that are cluttered in one house. More likely for them to get it. Bad immune systems. I mean, guys, it's a recipe for disaster. It's so unscientific. But when doctors speak out about it, they get censored and taken off of YouTube and places like that. Whereas we're apparently only supposed to listen to a Swedish little girl, a corporatist named Fauci who's funded and makes a fortune off this, and a computer nerd from the 1970s. Tells you all you really need to know about the situation we're currently in and the planning and the scamming that we're witnessing. The biggest global depression in history. Millions could die from it. This isn't fear-mongering. This is a fact. It's just how economic situations work. It's the symptom of a massive, inflated, centralized system that was blown over by a gust of air. The catalyst being the shutdowns. And now look at it. And they're forcing people into their kennels, and they're telling people they can't leave their home unless they're traced everywhere and force vaccinated under social credit with this contact tracing app that's similar to Chinese style technocracy. My friends, What does that tell you? Anyway, we have to reject this. Share this video around as many places as you can. The shadow banning is real here on YouTube. And check those links below for ways you can pledge and support us any way you can, because we are demonetized and they have basically shut us down. We won't be on YouTube much longer. Please join us on Flote.app and BitChute. It's never been more important to follow the alternative platforms, because this is the very end of this website if you're watching this on YouTube. And there's no point in even watching it on YouTube. This is an old guard system, and old guard systems die. People naturally decentralize, always. Free humanity, free yourself, free your mind, be free, live by example, my friends. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe star. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like Flote.app, that's FLOTE.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Flote is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.